I finally learned how to get shit done. The answer to being able to sit down at my desk or on the tube or wherever I may be and lock into my work. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to do it too. As a distracted person who couldn't work for 5 minutes without checking my phone, this took experimentation, lots of energy and months of work. But finally, I have a simple guide for understanding the blockers for focus, overcoming them, and the simple habits to build to achieve limitless focus. I can't focus, or at least I couldn't before. Every 2 minutes, I'd be checking my phone, and I'd lose my train of thought and any momentum that I'd managed to build up on whatever I was working on. I'd then lose my place in whatever I was doing, and it would require significantly more energy to get me back to my full pace. And so I embarked on a challenge to try and improve my focus, which went pretty poorly. I'm tired. I don't really want to do much more work today. I'm really struggling to get past the starting point for this, and I think it's because I've had a lot distracting me. It's really strange. You can feel yourself going. You can feel when the focus is dissipating. But what it did highlight to me were the key things stopping me from focusing properly, and it was surprisingly obvious once I'd realised it. The first blocker was distractions. Big catch-all term. Whether it was my phone, chatting with my flatmate, or someone else's conversation that I was eavesdropping in the office, they all kept me over. I'd start focusing on the distraction, and then when I realised I was distracted, I had no recollection of where I started. Brilliant. Then came the second blocker. Starting something with no plan. We will all get distracted by something at some point, however much of a Jedi you might be. We're human, but when we return from that distraction, you need to pick up where you left off. I never had a plan, so I picked up with scattered thoughts and no sensible restarting point, so I wouldn't restart. Finally, in the unexpected scenario that I did keep going through all the distractions, through the lack of planning, I'd eventually get knackered because of the amount of energy it was taking to keep up with all these other things going on. Powering through was only causing my focus to wane, and even when I did, the output had all the grace and integrity of a reversing dump truck. I needed to overcome these obstacles. It was driving me insane that I couldn't work it out, and my research barely helped. I realised the simplest way to approach it was to just remove these obstacles one by one, or at least minimise their ability to arise. Something as basic as, if I'm getting distracted, I need to remove the distractions. If I'm struggling to resume after getting distracted, I need to have a plan to pick up again quickly. If I'm starting to feel tired or unfocused through fatigue, I need to recharge. It sounded like the most obvious thing in the world, but until I'd said it out loud, it hadn't clicked. Now, it had, and I had a simple method that completely flipped my focus. Removing distractions needed some base work. What were my distractions? Well, my phone was the obvious one. I had a habit of picking it up completely unconsciously. If it was in my eye line or my reach, it was a problem. That had to go. So whenever I start work now, step one is to put my phone outside the room, or at a minimum, launch it to the other side of the room. The latter's more fun. Next, it was my wider environment. Friends to talk to, loud noises outside, people on the tube nattering away to each other. You can't just launch them to the other side of the tube however much you want to, so instead I invested in a pair of noise-cancelling headphones. To make sure I always wear those headphones, I keep them in the same place always. I always return them to the hook by my desk, and that means when I sit down at my desk to start work, my hand automatically goes there, knowing my headphones will be there. That doesn't block it all out though, and so I also started listening to binaural beats. Sounds that you don't focus on, unlike song lyrics or a podcast, but block out the wider noise, are an absolute winner for me. Binaural beats are my favourite, but I'm sure white noise would do as well. That got my distractions out of the way. Simple. Next, planning. The simplest way to do this for me was to break down my tasks into simple steps. Nothing fancy, just in my notes app. This just meant that if I had to take a break, or God forbid got sidetracked, I can go to my notes, see where I was, and crack on again. Focus restored in seconds. Finally, dealing with fatigue. When I clock that my focus is starting to dwindle, I take a break. No 20-minute timers, no clever methods. However, I don't go and sink into distractions. Instead, I go and make a cup of tea, maybe have a chat with someone, and if I can, I might do a minute of deep breaths, which is more re-energizing than you might imagine. So there's the method. Phone away, preferably launched across the room. Headphones on, playing binaural beats, or generic sound of your choice. Break down each task into simple steps before starting, and don't forget to let yourself recharge. This simple method genuinely took me from taking days to complete things to smashing through tasks without really even breaking a sweat. It also meant that I could sit in front of the computer for hours at a time without getting overly tired or losing focus, which is genuinely a massive shift from even just a couple of months ago. So if you think this method might help you, let me know in the comments how, and subscribe to the channel for more self-improvement tips. Sometimes all you need is something simple.